Hello, and welcome to vlog number 19. In this episode, we're going to take a look at my latest aircraft releases, and also see the progress I've been making with the next releases I have planned. See if you can guess what the aircraft are from their silhouettes throughout the video. A word of warning, some of them are a bit obscure, but that's what makes Staples and Vine so different. I enjoy making the unusual subjects that other manufacturers avoid and collectors crave. But first, before we get into all that, I'd just like to say a big thank you to the first 2,000 subscribers to my channel. It really means a lot knowing that you guys enjoy the videos I put out enough to subscribe, and for that I'm really grateful. I put my first video out 3 years ago, and now have over 50 on the channel. As you can see, it's a lot of work putting out these videos single-handed, given the nature of what I build. Pretty much everything is scratch-built, which is itself a very time-consuming process. This is why my videos are so infrequent. My models don't just fall together out of a box. I design and create each individual part myself. My personal projects allow me to experiment with different materials and techniques along the way, creating large-scale models. I try to share with you the detail of what goes into these builds, and explain in more detail the techniques I use on a regular basis in my how-to videos. I have a lot more projects planned for the future that I think you'll find interesting. There'll be many more problems to overcome and techniques to learn. Hopefully, you'll join me along the way by subscribing to my channel. Now let's get on to the 4 new 1:72 scale aircraft releases I have for you today. My first release is the easiest one to guess. For this aircraft, I needed to design and 3D print a 4,000-pound cookie bomb on its trolley. It was a bit difficult tracking down accurate source information, but once I had what I needed, it was fairly quick to design in my CAD software. I set up my resin printer to print several copies of the bomb and trolley, so I had spares, just in case. The quality of the resulting prints was perfect and allowed me to pick the best of the prints for the next stage. I had to fill a few minor holes where the supports had been, but that didn't take long. I also had to make a new bomb bay for the aircraft, and this I made from milliput. These 3 parts had to be converted into metal masters, and to do this I had to make cold cure silicon moulds. The castings from these moulds are pretty rough and need a lot of cleaning up, but at least the parts are now in metal. The cookie bomb came out black as I was trying a new grade of silicon rubber, as there's recently been a shortage of the right grade for casting. Sometimes, instead of 3D printing or making a part from milliput, I can cut out a part from a casting and rework it by hand. This wing provided the metal I needed to cut a blank, shape it to the rough profile, and then finish it to the exact shape I needed. This is a lot quicker than making silicon moulds and saves using up precious rubber. Once all the new masters are complete, I can then make the vulcanized production moulds for all the new aircraft. And here's a set of pewter castings for the first of the new releases, ready to be assembled and finished. If you guessed it was a de Havilland Mosquito, well done. In this case, it's a Mosquito B Mark 16. Derived from the highly successful Mark IV, the Mark 16 features more powerful Merlin engines and an enlarged bomb bay to carry the 4,000-pound cookie bomb. The Mark 16 was used most effectively by the RAF Pathfinder squadrons. These elite precision bomber squadrons used the Mosquito to its full advantage, striking hard at the enemy. This particular aircraft was flown by Flight Lieutenants Ivor and Tommy Broom. Although not related to each other, they became known as the Flying Brooms and flew on many operations together. The next of my releases is a naval torpedo bomber and was operated by the Royal Navy's Fleet Air Arm. If you guessed it was a Fairey Barracuda, congratulations! These were designed to replace the outdated Fairey Swordfish as the Royal Navy's primary torpedo dive bomber. With its airborne radar and folding wings, it was ideal for carrier use. Here the underslung 18-inch torpedo is fitted with a plywood airtail to keep it straight in flight until it enters the water, when the airtail will break away. Land-based barracudas provided cover against enemy shipping around the coast of Britain, should events such as the Channel Dash reoccur, when German battleships made a run up the English Channel to the security of their own home ports. In the dive bombing role, barracudas took part in several attacks against the Tirpitz in its Norwegian fjord. OK, any guesses for aircraft number 3? Here's a clue, it's closely related to the Mosquito. From the de Havilland Aircraft Factory, the Hornet is one of the most elegant fighters ever built. Following the same plywood construction as the Mosquito, and also powered by twin Merlins, this single-seat fighter was just too late to see service in the war. Armed with 4 cannons under the nose, and later the ability to carry rockets and bombs, the Hornet was often described as being like a sports car to fly. This example carries short-lived experimental markings and saw service in the RAF with 65 Squadron. Sadly, the jet age spelled the end of the piston-engine fighter, but the Hornet was undoubtedly one of the most elegant ever built. Now, onto the final release, and perhaps the most difficult to guess. Like the Barracuda, it served with the Fleet Air Arm, and at the same time. This early fighter reconnaissance aircraft is the Fairey Firefly. This carrier-based aircraft first flew in late 1941 and continued to evolve to suit ever-changing needs, serving through to the Korean War. This particular aircraft was the first production Firefly and took part in Operation Mascot, one of the many raids against the Tirpitz. You can find out much more about these new releases and other models in the Staples and Vine range by following the links in the description below. OK, let's take a look at what I have planned for my next releases. What follows is the start of a completely new range for Staples and Vine, something that's been in the planning for a long time. Many years ago, we visited the Goodwood Festival of Speed and saw on display in front of the house Sir Malcolm Campbell's Bluebird. We discussed whether I'd be able to recreate such an incredible car, and after some careful consideration, I reckoned I could. The hard part would be getting source material, good plans and photographs. Unfortunately, plans weren't available and the project was put on hold, until now. Having sourced material over the subsequent years, I finally have enough information to not only make Bluebird, but a range of iconic land speed cars in 1/43rd scale. New bases and boxes have already been designed and work is well underway on Sir Malcolm Campbell's famous car. Campbell held many records, several of which were set in this particular car in its various incarnations over the years. I've already modelled Bluebird in 1/18th scale, as you can see elsewhere on my channel, but this version will be 1/43rd scale and available to all. Bluebird was powered by a Rolls-Royce Type R racing engine, the precursor of the Griffin. These had been built for the Schneider Trophy racing aircraft of the 20s and 30s. After setting an initial record on Daytona Beach, Campbell moved to the vast salt flats of Bonneville, where on the 3rd of September 1935 he set a new record of 301.129 miles per hour. To accompany Bluebird, I'll also be releasing the Mercedes-Benz T80 Schwarze Vogel. Designed by Ferdinand Porsche, the T80 was intended to mount Germany's attempt on the land speed record in the late 1930s. It was prevented from doing so by the outbreak of the Second World War. With its unconventional six-wheel design, the T80 was, like Bluebird, powered by an aircraft engine, in this case the Daimler-Benz DB603. Almost complete in late 1939, it was put in storage where it survived the war. Today, it resides in the Mercedes-Benz Museum in Stuttgart, with its fellow Silver Arrows from back in the day. Using what I've learned from the larger scale models, I've reduced the CAD model to 1/43rd scale and begun 3D printing the parts. Here in the Slicer software, you can see how the main body of Bluebird will be 3D printed. There's a lot of support material, but that's fine, it's easy to remove. I also made the T80 in 1/18 scale, as you can see from the other build series on my channel. in part 6 of my how-to series, you can even see just how I went about creating the T80 in my 3D modelling software. The T80 has also made it to the 3D printer successfully. I guess you'd like to see the prints of the 2 new cars. Well, here you go. The green parts were printed on my FDM printer in ABS, and the blue parts on my resin printer. All of these parts are to be cleaned up and converted into metal masters using the silicon mould method we looked at earlier in the video. The same process will take place for the T80, which was printed in exactly the same way. You can find out more about the T80 and Bluebird by following the links in the description, which will take you to the Staples & Vine website. There you'll find a full history on both cars, and of course see many more of the models I produce. As I mentioned before, thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe to my channel. It makes a big difference and motivates me to produce more content for you to enjoy. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.